people. You can't ignore us. Blackwater must go. We're the people. You can't ignore us. Blackwater must go. We're the people. You can't ignore us. Blackwater.
Hey, well, I've been a big fan of music. Well, I learned about this.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I would like to change the agenda around a bit. I'd like to have item 12 first, and I would like to move this up in consideration of all of those present who would like to be speaking and consider this item first. So could I have a motion on an approval with the board moving this item up
to item 12?
Yes.
Okay, so moved. Second.
Discussion?
This is just for to reconsider it, not to discuss the substance of it.
This is to, the board will discuss and reconsider the following agenda items, which was approved at the January 28th board meeting.
Just to move it up on the agenda.
You're just going to move it up.
Before the-
Sure, sorry.
Yes, okay.
Thanks for the clarification.
Do I have a first and a second? Do I hear anyone else want to say anything?
No, I was just going to ask that once it's approved, that once we go ahead and vote on this current motion right now, then afterwards I would just like to add, if we can have a few minutes after the item has been heard, so people can go ahead and leave if they wish to, without any disruption, and then we can come back later, back on the
First of all,
the meeting.
Right. So do I, please vote. Now then we'll go back to comments. Item 11, oral communications. Okay, the first one on the agenda is Adrian Wood, a student, and she would like to talk about the SWC denial of admission. Adrian?
Good evening. My name is Adrian Wood, and I'm currently a student here at Southwestern College. I recently applied last November to San Diego State for fall 2009 admissions, and I was actually denied. I followed the requirements outlined by San Diego State to fulfill their general education as well as the lower division major preparation. I've completed 82 units, and you're only required to complete 60. I have exceeded the GPA. I have a 3.47, and for my major, the minimum requirement is 2.9. I've been working very, very hard over the past few years. My husband was active duty in the Marine Corps for 4 years up until last year. I have 2 children that are 1 and 3. I have worked very, very hard to maintain the requirements set by San Diego State to have guaranteed admission so I could transfer. And if I have been denied my application, I have no other option to go to school anywhere else because my job is in San Diego. I work full-time. When my husband got out of the Marines, we chose to stay in San Diego based on the fact that I was under the understanding that I would get into San Diego State if I completed what they required me to complete. So it's been a huge impact on my life, on my children. My 3-year-old is well aware of what's going on in our lives. I'm trying to appeal this decision, and I know this has happened to many of my classmates and fellow students at Southwestern as well as other community colleges, and I just would like you to understand how much it is affecting us students that have worked very, very hard. Thank you.
And with our oral communications, an oral presentation to the board does not constitute an open discussion on the presentation's topic, unless that topic is on the posted agenda. Pursuant to Board Act Code 5459, no action or discussion shall be undertaken on any item not appearing on the posted agenda, except that members of the legislative body or its staff may briefly respond to the statements made or questions posed by persons exercising their public testimony or rights under this section. And our speakers are allowed 3 minutes unless those 3 minutes have been given. Unless you can't hear? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, there you go. Sorry about that. Unless, what did I say? 3 minutes for each speaker, unless those will give their time to a speaker. And if you're talking about the same subject and the same discussions, it would be nice if you would have just one spokesman speak for all of them. So the first one has 6 minutes, and it's Ray Lutz, Citizens Oversight Southwest. Mr. Lutz.
Thank you very much. My name is Ray Lutz, and I'm with Citizens Oversight Projects Committee. We encourage citizens to go to public meetings like this one and become active in their community and their local political system. We started a long time ago, actually in 2007, I guess, working with the people in Potrero. That Blackwater was going into that area, and we helped them stop Blackwater from putting in their 824-acre training camp. Then we, celebrating that victory, we discovered that Blackwater went into Otay Mesa under assumed names. Southwest Law Enforcement, which was a name of just a couple of people up in Huntington Beach. And they went in with a couple of small permits and so forth. And when it became apparent that they were putting in a large or more extensive facility than was disclosed, the city of San Diego said no. And then they took, Blackwater brought it forward to the federal court level, skipping the state, and forced the city of San Diego to provide their occupancy permits. In this whole process of working with the community to save their valley up in Potrero, we learned about the character of Blackwater and what they do. We also learned about their character over in Iraq, where they were responsible for training and deploying their mercenary guards, and I call them that because they're not just logistical contractors, they're soldiers deployed. And they were involved in the FBI, I guess convicted them. I don't know the exact disposition, but they were linked to the massacre in the Shore Square, which killed 17 civilians on September 16, 2007. Then we find out about this same company coming to Southwestern College and entering into an agreement without too much public fanfare. In fact, the board agreed to a gag order such that you weren't going to be able to say anything to the press about this secret situation. And in this situation, although it said that it's at no cost, If you dig deeper, you find out that indeed you're supposed to reimburse Blackwater for an untold amount. They can set whatever it is. They get to use on-campus conference rooms for an unlimited amount of time for anything they want, including possibly recruiting students here for their mercenary army. The whole concept of having a for-profit organization, getting to come on campus without any real oversight, public discourse or review is really quite astounding in my view. And I think a lot of the public. Now in Potrero, since we didn't get cooperation with that board, all the people that voted for Blackwater were recalled by about 70% of the vote. And that indicates to you what the disposition is of the community that you're representing. They don't approve of this company. They don't approve of it being on campus. This agreement that you have before you is completely out of line, must be revoked, and if we need to talk about how to find training for your programs. Look, we're for teaching people, law enforcement and so forth, how to shoot. We don't want people that are in law enforcement carrying guns and don't know what to do with them. However, this has to be done on public property, government property, under a situation where we can oversee what's going on. City College has a similar program. Lisa Curtin is the person who runs it there, and she's very cooperative about setting things up. I would encourage that. We have, I know in the room, representative from Bob Filner's office here, and he has been very, very helpful and understands that this organization must be put to a stop. So again, thank you for your time, and I appreciate you getting this on the agenda quickly, and I encourage you to put this behind you and say no to Blackwater. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker will be Monty Johnson of Blackwater EXC students.
My name is Monty Johnson. I'm a professor of philosophy at UCSD and a member of this community. I'd like to thank the board for giving me a chance to address a question. I would like to know why Dr. Chopra signed a document that suspends the district's ability to discuss this matter further without the approval of a private company. So to quote from section G8 of the memorandum, the district further agrees that no press release or statement shall be made by the district regarding this memorandum of understanding without the prior written approval of the agency. I have never seen a document like this in my experience in education, and I think that the members of this community are owed an explanation as to why you would suspend the rights of the college to speak about anything that it wants to its people. So I would give the rest of my time if there could be an answer to that forthcoming.
We're not allowed any comments. We have to listen to what you have to say.
Okay, well then I would just invite there to be some explanation to the rest of the community in some other public forum then. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The next speaker is Alan Barrett.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the governing board audience. Thank you for letting me speak tonight. Maybe I have your explanation. Mr. Lutz, among others, is the chief antagonist of the agreement between Southwestern College and Blackwater Worldwide. He and others like to throw around the mercenary word as a scary pejorative, but they seem to misunderstand the actual meaning of the word. That is, a soldier hired to fight a war. This is a misuse of the word. Blackwater is a private security firm. The only difference between them and other security firms is a much greater level of training and the understanding that at any moment they may find themselves in a firefight to protect the life of a foreign dignitary they've been hired to protect. Mr. Lutz claims the company is, quote, privately owned and secretive, and the public has no way to review what goes on inside the building, unquote. Is there some rational reason for Mr. Lutz to believe we have a right to know what happens in the boardroom of every company that operates in the United States? Is he suggesting he wants to violate the civil rights of business people? Also, Mr. Lutz believes that, quote, because SWC is a public institution, the public controls it, and he does not want a private-owned company having any ties with the college, unquote. These are quotes taken from the newspaper article. I suppose that attitude should be extended to mean the campus should not do business with any private companies. How about the private security guards we have hiring to patrol the campus after hours, or the private company that did the road widening project? Do we have to bring in government personnel to install new data lines rather than using small local and private contractors? Why hasn't it been mentioned that Blackwater provided relief supplies and shelter to the East County residents during the fire season and also helped Katrina victims during that disaster? Mr. Lutz's argument is flimsy at best and holds no water with reality. Public institutions make contracts and compact with private organizations every day in support of both the public and private good. He should not imply that the campus has made a deal with the devil just because he doesn't like Blackwater or what they do as a business plan. There have been articles in the news of Blackwater security guards charged with manslaughter in Baghdad. This is a highly unfortunate and regrettable event, but the perpetrators are being held accountable under the law. Don't bring out the broad brush and paint all Blackwater employees as murderous henchmen whose only motivation is death and destruction paid for by our tax money. Every business and every organization has a few people that operate outside the scope of common decency. Try to name a single police department that hasn't had any officers charged with some sort of heinous crime. If we applied the same standard of Blackwater to the California Highway Patrol, Craig Pyre would have us believing that the whole organization is a bunch of murderous thugs. We also wouldn't be able to mail our letter due to all those crazy postal workers, by the way. And closer to home, unfortunately, this very campus has had its own legal issues with at least one past president, as well as numerous other litigations as evidence on tonight's agenda. Should we discourage students from being associated with Southwestern College because of our less than impeccable record? I'd like to quote from one of the adjunct instructors here at the campus. Quote, "Firing ranges are at a premium in San Diego. The SWC Academy cadets must have firearms training to be certified in California. To purchase this time from private ranges is very expensive. If Blackwater wants to do the students a service by allowing them to use their facilities at no cost, that is a benefit to the student. Blackwater is not conducting the training, SWC instructors are. There is no Blackwater recruiting going on, only law enforcement training. Blackwater has several divisions, the highly publicized private contracting division being one of them. The training unit provides law enforcement officers training from around the United States."
Mr. Garrett, your 3 minutes is up.
I got two sentences.
Okay.
And in fact, I'll end the quote and say, "You, the members of the SWC Governing Board, acted in the best interest of the Police Academy students, and I applaud you for your level-headed, common-sense approach to this issue. I must strongly urge you to stand behind your decision and uphold the agreement with Blackwater in support of our students." Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Lila Martinez.
Be a little louder, please.
Lila Martinez.
She's not here.
She's not here. Okay. Gabriel Orendia, and he has 6 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Gabriel Ivano de Manegochea, and first off, I'd like to thank my friends and family for coming here to support me, and I'd like to thank the board for giving me this opportunity to speak in front of you guys. And first thing, I would like to tell every member on the board is that I have tremendous respect for all of you, and know that you guys have a difficult job ahead of you. As the former editor of the Southwestern College Sun, the former news editor, I understand and I follow closely all the decisions that you guys make. And I know that you guys make tough decisions all the time. This was one of them that I don't think was that tough. I want you to think for yourselves, what message does it send the students and the faculty here on campus when you think it's acceptable because there's no money being transferred, that we're allowed to do business with people that are notorious across the world, people who have been kicked out of Iraq, and if Iraq doesn't want them, they're probably no good here either. You've signed an agreement that doesn't allow you to talk about it freely, and I want to know, why would you give up your First Amendment rights for a company that goes against everything that higher education teaches for? I do believe it was the wrong decision, and I hope that you guys all think about the message that this sends to students. Is it okay to do business with people who are hired to kill people? Is it okay to do business with people who have been charged with transporting weapons from dead Kurdish soldiers to Turkish security forces. Is it okay to do something simply because it's done somewhere else, or because when it happens there is no law to govern it? These people operate outside the law, and these people don't have any international sanctions. They don't have to follow Geneva Convention like our American soldiers do. Our American soldiers have to follow set rules and display great valor when they're on the field. You watch videos of these mercenaries, and you hear them very casually using, I'm not even going to say the racial slurs that they use here. It's sickening to me. And it's sickening that you guys would unanimously agree to allow these people to use our facilities. I do not want to be sitting in the same classroom as they were sitting in when they were negotiating their next mission, or their next target, or their next operation. Stand up and do what is ethically and morally right, not just something that is financially right. There are other options. There are other firing ranges here in San Diego. And if that is the situation that our police cadets, which is one of the finest in California, the academy that trains them, if that is the issue that they need for certification, look around. We will be willing to put in that extra money for them. There are other options for this. We do not have to deal with these international terrorists. Thank you very much.
Our next speaker is Michelle Crust. Michelle, K-R-U-G.
Krug.
Krug.
Close enough. I want to thank you for allowing us to, well, one, for putting this on the agenda so rapidly. I was amazed because I know what it takes to get things on agendas. So thank you for that. To me, when I learned that Blackwater was doing business with Southwestern College, and I still believe this, I suspect that it went through without enough of discussion, or with people not realizing what it was. Because I don't believe that this board, as I know many of you, would have set up a situation to create a training for paid killers. I just don't see that. I think that there's many things that are troublesome about this contract. One of them is the gag order that has already been referred to. Another one is that it has not gone out to bid. That is rarely ever done, if ever done. Maybe with extenuating circumstances, but I don't see that present in this situation. To me, the idea of having Blackwater here and able to recruit students is clearly what they're getting out of it. I understand the district would like to be able to use firing range without having to pay for it, but from what I understand about the contract, you actually are committed to paying for the personnel running that facility. So I just ask you to please reconsider this, and I hope that you will rescind that contract. Thank you.
Next speaker is Jackie Gothard.
I donate my time to anybody who wants to speak. Ray Lutz, if you'd like to.
Thank you, because I would like to respond to some of the comments that were made earlier, specifying my name, which is, they're supposed to be addressing the board here. We found out what the community thought about the Potrero situation with Blackwater very clearly. The community voted more than 2-to-1 when they recalled those people who voted for Blackwater. You can see the number of people here tonight. I would suggest that you take that under consideration. The community doesn't want to see Blackwater here. I don't know that anyone who does come up here usually is paid by Blackwater or has some sort of a deal with them. Very rarely do I find someone who just comes out and says, because I've been haunted by these guys. I've been in their target for the last several years. I've been fearing for my life. These are mercenaries. I wonder if I'm going to make it. I decided I have to stay in the public eye or I could be gone. So if you think people that show up here are just at random, they're probably plants by Blackwater to show up here. That's all I can say about it. Now, you had my 4-page document where I went over 13 points in detail. I can supply that if you haven't gotten that. It very clearly specifies why this is not the right thing to do. Thank you.
Next speaker, Gabriel Conaway.
He also forfeits his time. Anyone else would like to speak?
Where is Gabriel?
He's outside. There was no room for him to come inside.
Point of order,
Yes.
Madam President. Although there is a provision for fellow speakers to cede their time to others, I think that that's normally done in advance.
Yes.
So not as a speaker comes up. So if a speaker has nothing to say, then we should move on to the next speaker.
So thank you anyway. We'll go on to the next one. Thank you. Veronica.
Hi, my name is Veronica, and I am a resident of San Diego, and I also have taken a few classes in Southwestern College. When I found out that Blackwater was going to be doing some business with Southwestern College, I was really upset because I have read a lot and have educated myself a lot about Blackwater. Blackwater is not just a regular company that trains security guards. As Raymond said, last year, on 2007, they killed 17 civilians, and before that, they did that before. So it's not a one unique event. And on top of that, the CEO, the previous CEO and founder of Blackwater, Eric Prince, he had the nerve to go to Congress, to the Congress of the United States, and swear and tell that he didn't know of any instance that Blackwater personnel have hurt innocent civilians. In this one shooting in Missouri Square, there was a little kid that was being driven by his father, and he died because a Blackwater bullet hit his brain. His brain was splattered on the back of the car. His father had to pick up his son's brains with his hand to go and bury him. Is this the kind of company that Southwestern College wants to do business with? Is this the kind of company that we want to send our students to be trained shooting? What are they going to teach them? They have no ethics, no morals. I believe Blackwater is out of control. I believe Blackwater should not be allowed to do any business in Southwestern College, nowhere in San Diego, nowhere in California. In fact, nowhere on this planet there should be a place for Blackwater people and their mercenaries. Thank you.
At this time, we will take up our item number 12 on the agenda, which is the reconsideration of memorandum of understanding with Blackwater Lodge and Training Center Incorporated.
Madam Chair? Yes. I'd like to move that we rescind our agreement with the Blackwater Lodge Training Center. And I'd like somebody to second it for the sake of discussion.
Second. Discussion?
Under discussion. Well, I don't agree with what Blackwater does as a business. And I'll preface it by saying that I'm a Vietnam veteran, served as an airborne paratrooper, and I was indirectly responsible, I'm sure, for many deaths in line of duty. But that aside, I have always respected the rights let me back up to that and say that this I did when I was 18, between 19 and 20 years old, as an enlisted member of a Fort Lewis platoon, as an artillery support unit, and as a board observer for one of the infantry line companies. But I also have been a very staunch believer that this country is here because it has to, from time to time, engage in terrible acts of war in order to preserve our society. Blackwater is one of the members of that society. It's a corporation that, to this date, has not been indicted for any criminal act as a corporation. Yes, individuals in Blackwater have been indicted and are currently undergoing a process through the criminal justice system for their murderous acts in Iraq. But the corporation itself has engaged in no illegal conduct. In fact, their entire activity was funded by the U.S. government, either by the State Department or the Department of Defense. If it had not been for the U.S. government, Blackwater's activities on behalf of the U.S. government would not have happened. So any activity on the part of Blackwater was done at the request of and at the payment of the U.S. government. Now, if we take this argument to rescind the agreement, which I didn't anticipate as part of the reconsideration, we would have to cut off all ties and turn away all federal funding because the U.S. military, members of the U.S. military, Marines and soldiers, have been tried and convicted of murder, manslaughter, rape, assault, and several of them are either doing time at Camp Pendleton or in an appropriate federal military facility because of the wrongdoing, their criminal acts. So I am really concerned about the double standard and frankly the violation of legal rights and constitutional rights of a corporate entity in this country. And I hope that we don't make our judgment based on the moment of pressure from politics, and that we make our judgment as a board based on sound legal theories and sound law and contract. Now, we as an institution, we have actually entered into a binding agreement with XC, I think it's pronounced, XC. And in that contract, for whatever, whether we like it or not, there are certain provisions for termination of that contract. So I'm concerned that if we unilaterally terminate the contract, that this will put this institution at risk of liability for breach of contract. Now, I don't agree with many of the provisions in the MOU. And in fact, I voted in favor of reconsidering this agreement so we can clean up that MOU, and at least with respect to the following 6 points. One, to make it clear that the termination clause under the agreement is indeed 4 months, and it is not for the term of the agreement as described in the contract, which is from now from 2009 to 2013. Second, that the confidentiality clause be amended to restrict it solely to proprietary information of the company that we entered into this contract, and that all references or provisions relating to disclosure of activities or personnel activities involving Southwestern College personnel or Southwestern College's responsibilities to the public be deleted from that confidentiality clause, so that it's clear that this institution is a public institution, is not under an all-pervasive and comprehensive gag order that restricts us from making even public comment when the press inquires as to what our students are doing in that facility. That is entirely inappropriate. 3, that we eliminate the arbitration clause. If this indeed is a goodwill gesture on the part of a good corporate citizen in our community, then an arbitration clause is entirely useless, since each of the parties can terminate at will, and in fact, there should be no question of compensation. If there is damage to the property, then we ought to be able to identify that damage and resolve that with negotiations, but not be denied the ability to go to court if that's what Southwestern College chooses to do. Mandatory arbitration nullifies or prevents Southwestern College from pursuing its legal rights in an open court, and it is left with the judgment that is rendered by an arbiter who is not a judge, who doesn't even have to be an attorney or trained in law. 4, make the California law the law that is applicable to this agreement, because this is an agreement that relates to serving the public in California, and more specifically the students of Southwestern College. And we should not have to go to North Carolina to resolve the disputes under this offer of benefit from a good corporate citizen of our society. 5, eliminate the clause regarding the use of Southwestern facilities, and enable so that this particular corporate citizen does not have an exclusive or use of the facilities, nor does it have a special right to use the facilities. We currently have a policy that enables anyone, individual person or corporation or nonprofit organization, to use Southwestern College facilities as long as they comply with the stated requirements. This company should be given no special treatment in that regard. 6, eliminate the clause providing for reimbursement to G for the use of the facilities or the personnel. If their intent is indeed to provide the gun range entirely as a public service to Southwestern College students, then that's the way it should be. And there should be no ambiguity as to Southwestern College's financial obligation, nor the G's ability to pursue compensation for the use of that pistol range. Finally, I strongly believe that access to this particular firing range is essential to our students in our police academy. We accepted this offer as a board only after it was represented to this board that access to other firing ranges in the San Diego area were not available to our students. Qualifying for firearms, pistol firing in particular, is an essential qualification for the students going through our police academy, and they will not be able to be sworn in as a sworn officer of this state unless they complete that requirement. And it is unconscionable for this board to turn away an offer of access to a facility that is virtually across the street from the police academy that would save our students money, time, and energy. Now, also, it should be clear that our students should not be exposed or subject to access by G or Blackwater or any other corporation for special access and recruitment. We have career days that are sponsored and conducted on the campus, and I assume on the very satellite campuses, for all employees. corporation should have access to those career employment opportunities in the same way that any other employer in San Diego has, if it chooses so. If it chooses not to, that's their choice. But we as a board should not deny any citizen, corporate or otherwise, the ability to contribute to the smooth and beneficial operation of our classrooms and our programs for the benefit of our students.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Aguilar. I really appreciate your comments. Trustee Valladolid?
Yeah. While I appreciate your comments and your addition to the contract, and your comment about offering the kind of services to any kind of corporation, I think what we see here is that we're not talking about just any kind of a corporation. We're talking about Blackwater, and I regret the fact that I voted for it in January. But what we're talking about here is a company that has very controversial background, and we're talking about a company that went in, trained mercenaries and killed innocent Iraqi civilians. One of them has already pled guilty, the others are being indicted. So we're not talking about just any company, corporation that just is willing to help us and we're willing to help them back. I mean, we are talking about a corporation with a very shady, a very controversial background. And so I think it behooves us, and I ask my colleagues to please vote to rescind the agreement. There are other, I've been talking to some of the community college places. There are other places that we can have training. And we need to send a moral, ethical message to our students that this is not okay. By political, by politics. I'm not being pressured by the threats that were made. Because I've been here for 10 years and we've been threatened before. And if I feel strongly about a position, I will vote that way. In this particular case, I feel very strongly that this is not the kind of organization we want to be connected with. Look at our mission statement, and I urge my colleagues to vote to rescind the contract.
Our mission statement also says that we're here to do what's best for our students. I have done my own personal research by talking to law enforcement, one of them sitting here. It is indeed a fact that it is extremely difficult in this county to find locations for qualifying at autonomy. They are at a premium. The forcing students to go to another facility would indeed require somebody to pay some additional monies, anywhere from $3,000 to $8,000 per session. I'm sorry, $300 to $800 per session. And I don't know what it takes to qualify. It's a 4-hour deal, I believe, and so it could be as many as a couple of sessions. The other thing that I was notified about this issue is that people in the academy have a variety of classes that are required to go to. They can't be late. It's very strict, and they can't miss. And to ask them to go to the Marine base or any other facility puts them in jeopardy of not being able to come to class because of the time and travel. We need to be very clear as well about what the agreement is with Blackwater. I assure you that it has nothing to do with them using our facilities whatsoever. They have agreed in an additional conversation with them in writing, and I will read it, that I wanted to let you know, this is a memo from Brian Bonfiglio, the Vice President of the Training Center, that says, in the absence of me not being able to be present at your MOU today, I want to let you know that modifications made to the Section D, subsection 1 and 2 will reflect that we, the agency, waive the use of all conference rooms on college grounds, and that no reimbursement whatsoever, I added that myself, for use of our personnel will be required. There were additional modifications made, but I thought these two were noteworthy in mentioning. As you know, we have more than adequate conference rooms, and I can personally attest to that because I suggested to President Roche that we go on a field trip and see what the facility looked like at the Blackwater facility. They have more than adequate classrooms, meeting rooms. They do not need the Southwestern College facility at all. It was a gesture, in fact, on the part of the college, because we just felt like, you know, they were doing something for us, so we made a gesture to have them use our facility. They don't need it, and they accepted the gesture. But they don't want to use it now because this has become controversial. And since your staff will be provided a key and free access to our indoor facility, which will not be supervised by Blackwater whatsoever, we have clear entry with our instructors only. We will not be required to have any personnel present during your training. Now, I am in support of keeping the facility simply because it is what's best for the people in the police academy. And that ends my statement.
Madam Chair, if I could, I'd like to. Well, but I'm going to. Well, the motion. Motion supersedes. I want to enter a substitute motion to renegotiate the agreement instead of outright cancellation.
I don't accept it.
I second that motion.
Discussion?
On the motion to amend, yes, I think, well, my understanding of putting this item on the board, it was only put on the agenda at the request of a board member who voted in favor of the last act, consistent with the Robert's Rules of Order. So, but my understanding of the reason for it here is to reconsider the MOU, not to cancel. So I voted in favor of putting it on the agenda.
You don't have to vote in favor of putting it on the agenda.
So I'm sorry, there's a motion on the floor and I have the floor. You can make your comments and then but I voted in favor of the motion on this item that we took to discuss it because of my desire to amend the parts of the agreement that are objectionable to me and I think to the rest of the board, and to make every effort within our ability to accept a good faith offer on the part of a corporation, and I say again, the corporation, either Blackwater or Z, has not been charged, indicted, or in any way associated with any violation of law, civil or criminal. And so, and that's my desire to do everything we can to make sure that we as a public agency continue to be responsive to the public in terms of access and transparency in what we're doing at the facility. And also, more importantly, that we provide our students with the best facilities. And this is a state-of-the-art firing range facility that only our Police Academy students will have access to use.
Mercenaries.
I'm sorry, that is not before this board, the question of mercenaries. The question before this board
is, that's what we're discussing.
The question before this board is the MOU, and I do want to revisit that MOU to make sure that Southwestern College maintains its ability to be transparent to the public, but at the same time make every effort to provide our students with the best facilities available.
Trustee Salcedo?
Yes, I just wanted to say that I am extremely torn in this issue. One, that I come from a law enforcement background. I understand what it takes to become a police officer. I understand the training that our law enforcement requires in order to be able to make it in the job. I also come from, my family has a history of being involved in the military at one of the many branches through the Marine Corps, through the Navy, and so on. So I understand the needs of our students and that it is just across the street and it is state of the art. But I'm also torn as to the reputation that this corporation has. I'm trying to go ahead and work it in my head as to which way I'm going to go because I'm very, very torn. And the reason that I'm torn is that the word mercenary. And one of my brothers who provided almost 30 years in the military is now in Iraq training the Iraqis. I would not, he's retired, I would not call him a mercenary. And many of the members of this corporation are former military or law enforcement. And I would not also get a brush and paint everyone as mercenary. And I concur with Trustee Aguilar's comments and position. But once again, I myself am torn because of the needs of our students and yet the controversy and the concerns that have been brought forward to us. Thank you.
But I'm kind of confused with the two motions.
The motion on the floor is a substitute motion I made to have the president renegotiate the agreement so as to eliminate the objectionable provisions, but to accept the offer of the gratuitous use, the free gratis use, not really gratuitous, but the free use of the firing range of Z, based on their representations of it by
legal counsel. So what's the status of the motion?
By Trustee Dominguez. And the motion was seconded. So right now, our discussion and our vote has to do with whether we want to accept the substitute motion or not. If we don't accept the substitute motion, then the original motion goes on the floor and we vote on that.
Actually, Trustee Aguilar is correct. A substitute motion was made, it was seconded. The board has the prerogative to vote up or down as part of a roll call vote on that motion. And then if it's defeated, then the original motion would be
So call for the question.
Okay. So clarification again would be, a yes vote would be?
Well, I believe the motion was to amend Trustee Valladolid's motion to essentially, I believe, Trustee Aguilar, to renegotiate these terms of the agreement. That was the motion.
But accept the use of the facility.
No, just to renegotiate the MOU, it will come back to the board. If we agree with the amendments, then we approve it. If we don't agree with the amendments, we can defeat it.
I thought that he said that we were going to vote on his suggestions for the amendment, but accept, gratis, even use the word gratuitous, the use of the facility. That's what I understand him saying.
I will accept Trustee Dominguez's amendment to include my 6 provisions as a part of the negotiation.
But accept the reuse of the facility under those conditions.
No. Also agree to that.
That's wrong. As far as it's unclear now as to what the substitute is.
Exactly. The substitute motion is to direct staff to renegotiate the MOU to respond to the 6 items that I articulated as minimum amendments to that MOU. And if that is done, to accept the use of the facility, that specifically the fire range, for the use of Southwestern College students. under the supervision of Southwestern College staff.
Okay, everyone understands the motion now? All right, I'll call for the vote. It passes with one no and ayes.
No, they did substitute.
It buys time though.
I think now they have to discuss the motion on the floor. Don't you have to discuss the substitute motion?
Yeah.
It's been substituted, now you discuss it.
Pass. So that's it.
So that's it.
We discussed it.
So now we'll take a 5-minute break. Okay, we'll clarify the motion.
Perfect.
Clarify that motion. So we'll get it
I think in fair summary, what we took the motion,
Look at the clerk's account.
Direct staff to renegotiate the MOU and respond to the 6 items as a minimum
The 6 items presented by Board Member Aguilar.
I'm sorry, what?
And if those are accepted, then accepted will be under supervision of Southwestern College
that's correct. We'll of course review the recording to verify which motion was actually approved. And also the staff was directed to pursue that with
And just for clarification from my perspective, that's my understanding of the motion that I just voted on. So I don't need any further clarification, so I stand by that decision. Thank you.
And one more point, and that this item will be brought back once the MOU is done.
for the board to consider the amended agreement if any.
To approve or disapprove, right?
Okay, thank you. At this point, we should take a 5-minute break, and then we'll come back and take the other yellow cards.
Shame on these people. What is wrong with them? The only one worthwhile was their
Idiot man hijacked her motion.
And she didn't say a thing. She didn't say a thing.
I mean, she